I'm Terry Pollard. I'm a local clergy. Thank you for coming tonight to see the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney. You know as well as I do that Governor Romney has been very visible in Iowa. He has campaigned throughout Iowa and in every place. Governor Romney talks about our Republican principles. Things like strong military, a strong economy, strong families, things that all of us believe in as Republicans. Governor Romney has committed himself to the full process here in Iowa. We saw him at the straw poll in August, and we know that he's made numerous visits to Iowa leading up to our caucuses on January 3rd. You have somewhere on your seat, close to you or underneath you, hopefully you have it in your lap, there's a red card that looks like this, and you've been provided a pencil. We'd like you to take that card, and you have some options there, ways that you can help Romney for president. And you check one of those, put your name down, and you can get involved and make sure things happen. And I just want to tell you tonight that it's because of that commitment that Governor Romney has, his commitment to our state, our process, and our party. That's why I've chosen to be a supporter of Mitt Romney, and I hope that you will too. I believe, as you do, that Mitt Romney has the vision, he has the values, and he has the experience to make a great president. And so we're going to want your vote on January 3rd because Iowa is going to lead the way for the country. Everybody's going to be watching Iowa to see what we do. And we want to make sure we get Governor Romney off to a good start by taking Iowa, all right? And I know tonight that it's a cold night in Iowa, northwest Iowa. It's cold. But I want all of you to join with me right now in giving a warm-hearted and warm-spirited and rousing Storm Lake welcome to the next President of the United States, Mitt Romney.
Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you. Gosh, only in Iowa would people come out on a Friday night to listen to a politician. I'm not sure what they told you, but I'm glad they did. They got you here, and I appreciate the chance to talk with you for a while. I'm going to offer a few words and then turn to you and let you ask any questions you might like to ask on any topic you'd like. Now, Pastor Pollard was kind enough to introduce me and tell you that a little bit about my life, and I'm going to tell you more about it, but I want to introduce a couple of friends here first, though. I see over there Congressman Steve King. Holy cow. Come on over here, Congressman. Come on in and say hi to everybody. You got a big shot here. Just say hi to your constituents. Just say hi.
I wanted to be here to say welcome to Buena Vista County, welcome to Storm Lake, welcome to Western Iowa, and thanks for running a really hard race and asking for this vote for Iowans.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you. I was just in early on my way over here, and I saw Jeff King, the congressman's son there, so the congressman, he makes sure that we're well taken care of. Candidates running for office, he rolls out the red carpet, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be with people who are so involved in the political process that you get to know us and listen to us. I thought I'd tell you some personal things. I was born in Michigan. Born there, actually in Detroit, Michigan. And as a young boy, I moved out to what seemed like country at that time, outside of Detroit. And in high school, I went to a party in my senior year. And went to the house of Stu White, Stu and Cindy White, friends of mine in high school. And I was a senior, and while I was there, I saw a girl that I'd known over the years, but she was just about turning 16, and she was very interesting for some reason. And I went over and saw her. Her name was Ann Davies, and she'd come with someone else to the event. And I went to her date, and I said, look, I live closer to Ann than you do. Can I give her a ride home for you? And he allowed us. How that was a real benefit. And so I gave her a ride home, and she and I have been going steady ever since. Ann and I have been married for 38 years. We have 5 boys and 5 daughters-in-law and 11 grandchildren. Our boys have been involved in this campaign. Actually, on the day that I announced I was running for president in Des Moines, Ann took the microphone, and in a fit of enthusiasm, she said, "Our son Josh has agreed to visit every county in Iowa." She didn't know there are 99 counties in Iowa. And Josh's eyes got big. He promptly went home and got on eBay and started shopping around for a Winnebago, and he bought a Winnebago, and he and his wife and 3 kids started motoring around Iowa this summer, visited every single county. And so we've been able to get around the state and get to meet a lot of wonderful people. There have been high points and low points, but mostly high points, and people who wonder about the future of this country have to recognize that what makes us the nation we are is the American people. You see, if you try and assess what it is that makes a great nation great, it is not just its land or the beauty of the stars that shine above it. It is instead the people who live on the land and the values and culture of the people. And what makes America, in my view, the strongest nation on earth is that Americans love education, we love hard work, we value opportunity. We came here either ourselves as immigrants or as descendants of immigrants. We came here seeking opportunity. We are a God-fearing people. Even Americans who don't believe in God typically believe in something bigger than themselves. We love our families, we love our country, and we'll sacrifice for our country. And if you're worried about the future of America, just meet the people of Iowa and the people of South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Michigan. Go across the country, as my wife and I have had the privilege of doing, and meet the American people, and you will see that the heart of the American people is well and strong, and that the values and culture that we have will allow us to remain the greatest nation on earth. Now, I didn't know I'd be running for president, to be honest with you. When I picked up that girl at age 15 and I was age 18 at the high school party, I didn't think I'd be running for president someday. I might have imagined it, like a lot of kids do, but when I got into this race, I turned to Ann and I said, "Sweetheart, in your wildest dreams, did you see me running for president of the United States?" And she said, "Mitt, you weren't in my wildest dreams." And so I'm brought down a peg or two from time to time. But let me tell you why I'm in the race. I'm in the race because I think this is an absolutely critical time for our country. And I believe that what I've learned by being in the private sector for 25 years, and then running the Olympics, and then running a state, has given me a unique set of capabilities to help take on the tough problems America faces. I don't have all the answers to every issue, but I know how to get them. And I know how to bring together extraordinary people to accomplish great things. Now, you know the kind of challenges we face. We face global jihad, the idea that there are people in the world that want to cause the collapse of all moderate nations, particularly ours. They want to cause the death and destruction of Americans. That's one challenge unlike anything we faced in a long, long time. We also face tough new competition for our jobs from Asia. We've been competing with Europe for jobs. Now we're competing with Asia. And there are a lot of Chinese and Indians that want our jobs. And they're hardworking and innovative and in many cases educated as well. And we're going to have to raise the bar here if we want to stay ahead. We can't surround ourselves with a moat and say no products from overseas coming in, because a lot of what we make goes over there too. So we face tough competition. And then there are our own domestic problems. We spend too much money in Washington. We use too much foreign oil. And in a way I can't understand, we simply don't enforce our borders. It doesn't make any sense to me that while legal immigration is a great source of vitality and strength for our country, we allow illegal immigration to go on year after year after year. And so I want to make sure that we solve all 3 of those problems. The foreign issues with the jihadists, our competitive issues with Asia, and our domestic problems. Now I know that some people listen to the Democratic debate, maybe not a lot of you in this room, but if you did get a chance to look at it, if you listen carefully to what the folks have to say, they're all planning on raising your taxes, one way or the other. They're going to raise they're going to raise the death tax, they're going to raise income taxes, they're going to raise taxes on corporations. That's the wrong way to take this country. That's the pathway that Europe took. Big government, big taxes, big brother running your life. That's not why we came to this country. It's not what makes us the unique country we are. In my view, we should take our guidance from the strategy Ronald Reagan pursued when he faced the challenges of the last century. When he faced the Soviet Union, he pursued a very interesting course. He decided to strengthen America to make us so strong the Russians couldn't keep up. He began by strengthening our confidence in ourselves, brought back optimism after the Jimmy Carter years. And then he focused on strengthening our economy. And how did he do that? He lowered taxes. He said, we're not going to take more of your money away. We are instead going to allow you to save your money and invest and build our economy. I have a special tax plan, by the way. See, I don't think it's fair that you get taxed when you earn your money, taxed when you save your money, and taxed again when you die. So I'm going to kill the death tax once and for all. And number two, I got a special savings plan. If you make $200,000 a year or less, and that's almost all Americans, 95% of Americans, there's a new tax rate on your interest and your dividends and your capital gains, all your savings. And that new tax rate is 0. I want people to be able to save their money and not get taxed on it. So I'm going to build our economy by keeping our taxes down. I'm going to build our economy as well by getting us off of foreign oil. We've been talking about that for 20 years, longer, since Jimmy Carter, and not much happens. And it's time for us to get serious about nuclear power and liquefied coal, where we sequester the CO2, and ethanol and biodiesel and wind and solar, as well as greater efficiency in our cars, our homes, our appliances, and investments in new technology to get us energy independent. And one more thing I'll mention to strengthen our economy, and that's this: securing our borders. We don't need to have people coming over here by the hundreds of thousands, many hundreds of thousands every year, coming into this country illegally and placing a burden on our education system, our healthcare system, our taxation. We need to say no to illegal immigration. Now, it's not as hard to solve this problem as some of the challenges we face. The difficulty, of course, is getting the political will in Washington to get the job done. And I've learned something about how you get political will. You see, in this area, the American people have a lot to say. The American people, when the Senate came out with a bill saying that everybody who come here illegally was going to get to stay for the rest of their life, when that happened, the American people stood up and said no. And they screamed so loudly that Washington had to retreat. I've learned that the American people, if they care very deeply about something and express their views openly, either in elections or, if you will, by emails and letters and phone calls, that we can have our way. And on this issue, we can have our way. I'm going to do the following things. I'm going to secure the border with a fence. Number two, I'm going to make sure that people who come here legally get a card identifying the fact that they are here legally. But we don't give that to the people who come across the border illegally. And you say to employers, if they haven't got the card, you can't hire them. And if you do anyway, we'll sanction you just like we do for not paying your taxes. And as soon as you stop the people coming here for getting jobs because they can't get jobs without that card, you're going to stop overwhelmingly the flow of people who come here illegally. And for those that have already gotten here illegally, my view is this: get in line with everybody else. No special pathway to citizenship or permanent residency simply because you come here illegally. No amnesty. Now, this is not some new approach on my part. When I was governor of Massachusetts, I faced an issue about this. There are a couple of governors running in the state right now that are both vying for your support, Governor Huckabee and me. And when he was governor, there was a question that came: should we give tuition breaks to illegal aliens for college? In other words, should taxpayers pay for the children of illegal aliens going to college? And he said yes and fought for that. Now, my legislature put a bill on my desk that would have done just that, and I vetoed it. And that veto was upheld. He also fought to have taxpayers give scholarships to illegal aliens. I said absolutely not. I said no to driver's licenses for illegals. I also said to our state police, I'm going to authorize you to get training from the federal government so you can enforce federal immigration laws. So at the same time Governor Huckabee was raising taxes in his state, he was asking taxpayers to give benefits to illegal aliens. We got very different views on illegal immigration. Now, there's some other challenges that we face, and you understand. I mentioned strengthening our economy. I mentioned strengthening our military. I want more troops, more funding for our troops, better care for our veterans when they come home. And I want stronger families. I happen to be convinced that there's no work that goes on in America that's more important than the work that goes on within the four walls of the American home. And if you want to see a bright future, you want to see strong families. Every First Lady gets a chance to campaign, typically as the First Lady, on one big issue. You remember Nancy Reagan? Remember her issue? Just say no. No to drugs. Had an impact too. You've seen drug usage among teenagers during the Reagan years went down, down, down. And then during both Bush presidencies, both First Ladies fought for reading and improving our reading capacities in our school. Well, my wife's passion is about helping kids make good decisions. Specifically, helping girls understand that before they get pregnant, they should get married. That marriage comes first. That every child deserves a mother and a father. And by the way, marriage is between a man and a woman. And those are things my wife. My campaign is about strengthening America. About keeping us so strong that our future will be bright. And I'm convinced we'll do just that. I know we can strengthen our families with the kinds of values you have right in this room. I know we can strengthen our economy, keeping our taxes down, solving illegal immigration, getting ourselves off of foreign oil. And I know we can have a strong military capable of defending this nation against any kind of foe. I have to tell you, now and then I get a little concerned when I listen to John Edwards, running for president on the Democratic side, talking about two Americas. You know, there are differences between Americans. There are males and females, Republicans, Democrats, rich, poor, black, white, all sorts of differences between us. But you know, on matters that matter most, we come together as Americans. We are united. The phrase, united we stand, does characterize this great nation. That's been brought home to me time and time again. I saw it at the Olympics. We all came together. I saw it following 9/11, when we needed to call on the American people. And I also saw it when I was governor. I was in my office one day when my chief of staff called me, and she said, Governor, there's a soldier coming home. His parents live quite a ways away from here. Could you go to the airport to meet this soldier coming home? And I said, sure. And she said, well, he's not coming home in the passenger compartment. He's coming home in the baggage compartment. And so I went to the airport. We drove there and drove out on the tarmac, and there were some National Guard folks there, and myself, our state troopers, and the big U.S. aircraft came in, big jet came in and stopped in front of the terminal, great big glass wall there by the U.S. Air terminal. And first of all, the passengers got off the airplane, and then they start the conveyor belt. They start taking the luggage off. All the luggage came off, and they hauled it away. And then finally, this casket began to come down this conveyor belt. And the soldiers stood at attention and saluted. I put my hand on my heart, and tears began to well in my eyes as I thought about that family losing their son. I have 5 boys. It's hard for me to imagine what it's like to lose a son. I know a lot of people do, but it's hard to imagine. And so they brought that casket down. They began to load it into the hearse, and I happened to glance up at the wall, the terminal there. It seems that the people who'd come off the aircraft happened to see all the police there and the soldiers, and so they were standing against the windows. And the people that were walking by in the terminal saw them standing there, so they began to line up. And I looked up there, and every person had their hand on their heart, looking at that soldier. This is a country that is united. It comes together when we need to call on the spirit of the American people. This is a time for strength for America. It's not a time to turn left and follow the Democrats towards Europe. It's a time to remain true to the principles that have made us the country we are. It's a time to remember the principles Ronald Reagan espoused, the principles Republicans stand for. It's time for us to keep the White House, to keep America strong. And I'm going to need your help to do that. Thank you so much. Honor to be with you. Now comes a chance for you to ask some questions, if that's all right. Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to say, welcome back to Iowa.
Thank you.
It's a cold place, but we have warm hearts.
That is true. That is true.
We have warm hearts.
Yeah. Something about the corn being cut down to about 6 inches high, with all that snow across it, just makes you feel like, boy, it's cold.
Let me ask. Right there. So, another famous person from Massachusetts once said, peace is a daily and a weekly and a monthly process, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures, Do you think this represents a reasonable approach to a world diplomacy rather than a threatening military action? Or,
Yeah.
1 minute.
Okay, yeah.
And it's coming. All right. Do you agree with Karl Rove? You guys is hero. Assessment that Republicans lost control of Congress because of corruption issues like the Mark Foley expose or the Abraham scandal, not because of the problems of the Iraq War.
Okay.
Please address that.
Well, I'm not a pollster, so I can't tell you why we lost control of Congress, but I can tell you what we did wrong.
Yeah.
What we did wrong was we spent too much money. When Republicans start acting like Democrats, America loses. That's one reason.
$20 in the Iraq War.
Yeah, okay, let me keep going. All right, so number one, we spent too much money. Number two, we let our ethical standards slide. And again, if Republicans are seen as having weak ethical standards, as the party that stands for strong values, we're going to take it in the chin. And we lost for those reasons. And we also, I think, lost in part because people were unhappy with the way we conducted the conflict in Iraq. We went for almost 3 years, spinning our wheels, taking casualties, not making a good deal of progress. We did a great job knocking down Saddam Hussein and his military, but then we didn't seem to close the deal. And so for all those 3 reasons, I think we had some real difficulty. Now, what do we do going forward? Well, I happen to believe that simply hoping that bad people will be good is not the right solution. I believe there are people in this world, like Ahmadinejad and others, and Saddam Hussein, who have as their intent very bad things. And no amount of talking with them is going to make them good. And that the best way to speak with people like that is by having strength. I believe, as Ronald Reagan used to say, he used to say that he'd seen 4 wars begin during his lifetime. And not one of them began because America is too strong. I believe that a strong America is the best ally peace has ever known. I hope we're so strong, and our military and our economy and our values are so vibrant that the rest of the world looks and says, don't mess with America. Don't do things that are wrong because America will step in. And so I believe in having a strong military. Do we talk as well? Sure. We work with other people and try and get them to do the right thing. I'll take one more piece of your question, and that is how do you deal with something as threatening as radical violent jihad? And the answer for that for me is, one, have a strong military, but number 2, work with the Muslim nations to help them become strong enough to reject the extreme themselves, to use their own military, their own police, to strengthen their economy, to give people education and health care so that people in their country reject the extreme. And we want to work together with them, along with other nations in the world, to help Muslims reject the violent, because we don't want to have to go all over the world fighting war after war after war against radical violent jihadists. So we want to help strengthen that.
Good news is I'll never vote for Hillary Clinton.
Good, me too. Me too. I guarantee you that. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Governor, you've had a great career in your state, and your record is clear. One thing that doesn't get a lot of press is what I think is your best qualifications for being the next president, and that is your experience before you were a politician. Could you outline a little bit of that career and tell us perhaps what you think maybe was the most important job that you did?
Great, thank you very much. I had the great benefit of being raised by extraordinary parents. And they were able to provide for me a very unusual education, which meant I got a great job coming out of school. And I went to work in a consulting firm, which is I went to work with a company which helped other companies do a good job and become successful. One of my first clients was in Marshalltown, Iowa. We worked for a company called Fisher Controls, which makes control valves. And I worked with them. We spent a lot of time driving back and forth between Des Moines and Marshalltown, trying to find ways to make sure that their product outcompeted the competition. And I learned a lot by helping other companies analyze their business. I did that for 10 years. And then I started a business of my own. And the business of my own, with some other folks, we came together, we began this business of starting companies, or buying companies in trouble and trying to fix them. And so someone came to us with one idea for a store that would sell office supplies. And I decided to invest in that. It's called Staples. It now employs maybe, 50, 60,000 people. And we put the very first dollars in that very first Staples store. I was there the night we stocked the shelves, put the supplies in there. And I said to the founders, I said, you guys, what happens if nobody comes tomorrow? And they said, well, you lower the prices and you advertise more. And I said, what if they still don't come? You lower the prices some more and you advertise more. And so I learned a lot about business because I was doing it on my own. And by the way, I didn't just do it here in this country. I got the chance to go all over the world. We bought a business in Germany and one in New Zealand. I negotiated to acquire a business in China. Didn't buy it. Looked all over the world. So I learned about negotiating and working in different parts of the world. So for 25 years, I was in the business world. And then someone came to me and said, well, actually, it was my wife. Ann said, you ought to leave your job, this company you started, and go out and run the Olympics in Salt Lake. They're in big trouble. It's going to be a big embarrassment to our country and a letdown for our kids, unless someone goes out there and turns around those Olympics. And so I left my job, left my business, gave it to my 18 partners that I'd hired, and went out there and ran the Olympics. And got those games turned around. And I came home, and the Republican Party in my state said, look, the only way we can keep the governor's office is if you'll run for governor. And so I ran for governor and surprised everybody, again, particularly my wife, and won. And that was a great experience. I was able to balance the budget all 4 years, put away, we restored the rainy day fund to over $2 billion, got health insurance for all our citizens, without a government takeover, without new taxes. So we got some great things done. So those are the things I've done in my life, and there's one more I'd like to get done, and that's why I'm here. I believe the things I've learned how to do, the life in the private sector and working around the world, learning how to share credit with others, learning how to work with Democrats. My legislature, by the way, is 85% Democrat. And yet we didn't raise taxes. Can you imagine that? We didn't raise taxes. We balanced the budget every year. We put money away in the rainy day fund. So we did some great things. And I'd like to do the same thing for the country. Thank you. Other questions?
Governor, my question is, illegal immigrants, I understand the legal ones are making more trouble than illegal. They come here on a visa, get educated, instead of going back, they disappear into civilian life. Is that right?
Well, those I categorize as illegal. Once they've overstayed their visa, once they're no longer allowed to be here, they become illegal. And so when I talk about stopping illegal immigration, I'm not just talking about those that walk over the border. I'm talking about those that come here legally at first, either as a tourist or as a student or on some other kind of visa, and then stay here. And in all those cases, it's time for us to say, stop. You're going home. We're not having all of you stay here forever. You're going to get in line with everybody else that wants to come here, but no special pathway by virtue of having come here illegally to become a permanent resident or a citizen. And so I'm going to go after all forms of those things. Now, there are some students who come here that do real well in school, get a PhD in some area. I'd love to have them stay. We want the brain power and the skills to come here, but get in line, get a legal opportunity to come here, and let's welcome people who speak English, who can contribute to our economy, particularly those that have education or other skills. Those we welcome. But we're not going to have people just decide to stay here, to overstay their visas or come across the border without our approval. And we're not going to create any extra incentives for people to come here illegally. And that's, let me tell you, I was at the border with the Border Patrol agents in San Diego. We got a double fence there. Great big fence, 10 feet high, maybe 12 feet high, separated by 100 yards. And I said, do they try and cross here? And he said, yeah, they do. About 100 a day try and cross right here. I said, well, how many do you stop? Because they have Border Patrol agents on four-wheelers there. He said, we're only able to get about 40% of them. The rest of them make it in. And because they got a guy, there's a guy up in a tree there with a cell phone. We're watching him. He waits until we move somewhere else, then they run across there. It's, they have ladders they make out of rebar. And they throw the ladder up on the fence, they jump over, take the next ladder, throw it up the next fence, run over. There's a parking lot right there on the other side of the fence in a mall in San Diego. I mean, so I said, how are you going to stop all this illegal immigration, even with a fence and Border Patrol agents here? He said, simple, turn off the magnets. You got employers that hire people illegally. That's one magnet. You got cities that call themselves sanctuary cities. That's a magnet. You give benefits, in-state tuition benefits and scholarships to illegal aliens. Of course they're going to come here. People aren't stupid. And so we're going to have to make sure that we enforce the law and don't create additional incentives for people to come here. And I'll tell you, if there's a state in America that gives out driver's licenses to illegals, I'll cut back on their federal highway funds. If there's a state that says we're giving in-state tuition credits, If they give in-state tuition credits and scholarships to illegals, I'll cut back on their higher education funds. And if there's a city that says they're a sanctuary city, they're not going to enforce the law, I'm going to cut back on funds to those cities. I'm going to make sure that we enforce the law in this country, that we welcome legal immigration, but we stop illegal immigration in all of its forms. Thank you. I guess I got one more question. Yes, sir.
What do you know about the NAFTA superhighway?
What do I know about the NAFTA superhighway? Well, I know this, which is if I'm president, it'll never happen. All right, I know that. We're going to maintain our sovereignty. Of course, we have interstate highways that link with Canada and Mexico and so forth, but we're not going to build a brand new multi-billion-dollar highway to make it easier for Mexican products to come in here. We trade with other nations. Of course, we're going to trade, but we're not going to build a superhighway. You guys, I just want to underscore for a moment how important it is for this nation to remain strong. And this was brought home to me very powerfully. A little while ago, I was in Boston, and I was in an apartment where the former Prime Minister of Israel was visiting. And someone there asked him a question. They said, his name is Shimon Peres. He's head of the Labor Party. They said to him, Mr. Peres, what do you think about the conflict in Iraq? And he said, you know, before I answer that, I have to put it in context. He said, in the history of the world, America is unique. He said, in world history, whenever there's been conflict, the nation that wins takes land from the nation that loses, because land has always been the source of value on the planet. One nation in history, he said, has laid down hundreds of thousands of lives and taken no land. This during the last century. No land from Germany, no land from Japan, no land from Korea. America is unique in history by virtue of its willingness to sacrifice the lives of its sons and daughters for liberty. This is a unique nation. It's essential that America remains strong in our homes, in our factories, our farms, and in our military. And I'm going to fight to keep this nation strong. I need your help. I need you to get out and vote at the caucuses 3 or 4 times each if you can. Just kidding. But I want you to get there and vote. Your voice is heard loud and clear across the nation as you get the chance to do that. I appreciate the attention you pay to this process, and I appreciate your willingness to stand up for a strong America with great jobs and a great future for you and for your kids and for my kids and my grandkids. Love you all. Thank you so very much. Great to meet you.